yeah. Light, yeah. Lights in the sky, as a kid they amaze me. Now they telling us it's for real, that's crazy. Everybody panic, but I stay swayzy. Everything that they ever say is a lie. Look at Charlie Kirk done from the inside. You were really in prison by what you call free in your mind. They sold you all the degeneracy. They sold you all the degeneracy. What lie will come next? If I put the truth in this song, I take two to the chest. That's how it goes. Notice how they go, lined up in rows. Notice what they did, y'all. Slow methodical destruction when they let them in, y'all. Now they want to blow us up, then admit what they did. Just a bunch of rich pedos ruining the future for our kids. They will call me crazy, but I tell you that they sent the storm to wipe out all the mountain folk. That they sent the dope. They sent them folk down them hoes. They sold you all the degeneracy. They sold you all that degeneracy. What lie will come next? If I put the truth in this song, I take two to the chest. That's how it goes. Notice how they go, lined up in rows. Lights in the sky, as a kid they amaze me. Lights. Now they telling us it's for real, that's crazy. Everybody panic, but the eyes stay swayzy. Everything that they ever say is a lie. Look at Charlie Kirk done from the inside. You were really in prison by what you call free in your mind. They sold you all the degeneracies. They sold you all the degeneracies. What lie will come next? If I put the truth in this song, I take you to the chest. And that's how it goes. Notice all the goyim lined up in rows. No, let's put the dead, y'all. Slow methodical destruction when they let them in, y'all. Now they rather blow us up than admit what they did. Just a bunch of rich peddlers ruining the future for our kids. They will call me crazy, but I hear that they sent the storm to wipe out all the mountain folk. Like they sent the dope that sent them folk down them hoes. They sold you all the degeneracies. They sold you all the degeneracies. What lie will come next? If I put the truth.
Alright, what's going on, everybody? Hope everybody doing good. We got a few people in here tonight. I hope we do anyway, because I got a good show planned. I got a good show. Tonight we're all going to learn a little bit more about St. Malachi's prophecy of the popes, and this comes up a lot with end times prophecy and those types of things. So we're going to learn a little bit more about St. Malachi, okay? So let's read this. We're going to go over this together. It's easier to learn like this. All right. Malachi, 1094 through 2nd of November 1148, is an Irish saint who was Archbishop of Armagh, to whom were attributed several miracles and an alleged vision of 112 popes, later attributed to the apocryphal prophecy of the popes. Excuse me. All right. Malor Madoc, whose surname was Ura Morgar, was born in Armagh in 1094. Bernard of Clairvaux describes him as having a noble birth. He was baptized Malor Madoc, meaning devotee or servant of Madoc. Madoc affirms, which was rendered Malachus in Latin, and was trained under the famous recluse Imar O'Hagan. Subsequently abbot of Armagh, Imar was in sympathy with the aims of those who sought to reform the Irish church, and it was probably through his influence that Malachi became imbued with their principles. After a long course of studies, Malachi was ordained priest by Selic of Armagh, Celsus, in 1119. Shortly afterwards, Selic made the young priest his vicar. For the next year or two, it was Malachi's duty to administer the diocese of Armagh. He established in all the churches the apostolic sanctions and the decrees of the Holy Fathers. Yes. Oh, see you, man. It was good to see you, buddy. We'll see you soon. All right. He established in all the churches the apostolic sanctions and the decrees of the Holy Fathers and the customs and practices of the Roman Church with the consent of Selic and Imar. He went to study under Malik Isu Hadamir or something. Malix, the first bishop of the north city of Waterford, who had by this time retired from the archbishopric of Cashel, was settled in Lismore. He spent 3 years there. Okay, buddy. Abbot of Bangor in 1123, the Coab of Bangor Abbey died. Bangor was the principal religious site in the northeast of Ireland. Since he ended his days at Lismore, it may be assumed that he was a friend of Malchus and of the movement with which he was identified. His successor, who was Malachi's uncle, expressed his willingness to surrender his office and the site of the monastery to his nephew. Malachi became abbot of Bangor Abbey.
Daddy, is my video almost done?
It should be up now, yeah. Should be up. It's not. We'll keep looking. Just keep. No, it's on whichever one's attached to Bugles. Oh, Tim. Oh, yeah, it should be up in a minute. Just any second. Just any second. Okay, let's get back to our. All right, so this became an opportunity. So this guy's his uncle became the Malachi becomes the abbot of Bangor Abbey. And then this became an opportunity to implement one of the canons of the Synod of Glaswegiel by establishing the Diocese of Connor. Selic, as co-op patriarch and consecrated bishop, had been able to organize the Diocese of Armagh in accordance with the Ramspear plan. Let's look at a short explanation of what this is. Let's see. The Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Armagh, in Latin, ecclesial jurisdiction of the Catholic Church situated in Ireland, is ordinary. Its ordinary is the Archbishop of Armagh. Okay, the Roman. Okay, it's just the jurisdiction here. I understand that now. Okay, the diocese is just the jurisdiction. In accordance with the Ramspear plan, with the prestige which belonged to the co-op of Comgal, Malachi, if consecrated bishop, could probably succeed in organizing the Diocese of Connor. In 1124, Malachi journeyed to Bangor, was installed as abbot, and was made bishop to Selic. Let me go check on Baby Fat here. Okay. She got on for me, but I think we'll show it here. All right, here we go. So we got done. Now Malachi has journeyed to Bangor, was installed as abbot, and was made bishop by Selic. In 1132, he was promoted to the primacy of Armagh. Bernard provides many interesting anecdotes regarding Malachi and highly praises Malachi's zeal for religion, both in Connor and Armagh. In 1127, Malachi paid a second visit to Lismore and acted for a time as confessor to Cormac. As you can see, Malachi was heavily involved in the church. So let's see here, Bernard. Let's see. What kind of relics do we have for Malachi here? Malachi's body remained at Clairvaux Abbey and eventually was placed in a tomb near Bernard of Clairvaux. After the abbot's own death, the tomb was moved several times with the rebuilding of the church. Excuse me. Portions of the remains were sent to Ireland in 1194 and deposited at Mellifont Abbey and other abbeys of the Cistercians. At some point in Clairvaux, part of Malachi's arm and part of the skull were removed and placed in special reliquaries in the abbey's treasury. His arm was kept in a silver case decorated with precious stones. A portion of the skull was kept in a bust reliquary of gilt silver, also decorated with precious stones and topped by a mitre. Okay, so it's, I mean, dear God, man, it's important guy, I guess. Malachi's patron saint, the Archdiocese of Armagh, like we said, the jurisdiction there, he's their patron saint, Diocese of Down and Connor. The Dominican Abbey at Carlington was dedicated to him, and his legacy, St. Malachi's Church, Belfast, was intended to be the Cathedral Church of Down and Connor, dedicated in honor of the diocesan patron. However, the Irish famine broke out, and the grand plans for St. Malachi's Cathedral was shelled to divert funds to the needy. Now, the prophecy of the popes. Let's get some forward information here. A prophecy of the popes is attributed to Malachi, which claimed to predict that there would be only 112 more popes before the last judgment. Benedictine Arnold de Wayon discovered and published the so-called Doomsday Prophecy in 1590. Most scholars consider the document a 16th century elaborate hoax. But we're going down the road of what if it's not? It is widely thought, given who the author was and his relationship, that the prophecies were published to establish the case for election of one particular cardinal. Well, so let's go forward with the prophecy of the popes, okay? Let's see. The prophecy of the popes. Prophecy of St. Archbishop Malachi concerning the Supreme Pontiffs is a series of 112 short, cryptic phrases in Latin which purport to predict popes, along with a few anti-popes of the Catholic Church. Beginning with Celestine II, it was first published in 1595 by Benedictine monk Arnold de Wayon, who attributed the prophecy to St. Malachi, 12th century Archbishop of Armagh. Yup, that's what we just got done with who was Malachi. So now, origin theories. According to an account put forward in 1871 by Abbé Courtier, Malachi was summoned to Rome in 1139 by Pope Innocent II to receive 2 wool palliums for the metropolitan sees of Armagh and Castiel while in Rome. Malachi purportedly experienced a vision of the future popes, which he recorded as a sequence of cryptic phrases. The manuscript was then allegedly deposited in the Vatican secret archives and forgotten about until its rediscovery in 1590. Now, is the document real? Was it penned by Malachi? Is it based on this vision that he had? That's what is up for debate. But this always comes up when you're talking about apocryphal talk, when you're talking about Armageddon or prophetic, doomsday prophetic type things. This always comes up. So let me see if we can find this. I don't, each of these, I want to find a video that will describe these, Alright, let's see if we can find a video. A shorter one. Well, let's see what this says. This is a short history video here. Let me get.
But despite his faith in the mercy of God, he was forced to bear witness to a terrifying vision of divine wrath. A biblical apocalypse that he predicted would occur in our time.
Oh, here we go.
Malachi Morgair was the first Irish saint to be canonized by a pope. He was known to have some supernatural miracles associated with him. He's most famous now for his prophecy of the popes.
In 1139, Malachi made a pilgrimage to Rome to visit the Pope. While ascending one of the city's fabled 7 hills, he was struck by a revelation from God.
And the story goes that he fell into a trance. All that night, he would mention these Latin phrases. De meditate lune, flos florum, pastor et nautua, de laboris solis.
Each one of these Latin phrases would match up to the reign of a particular pope. And in that vision, he saw 112 popes up until the tribulation time, till the end.
And according to St. Malachi's prediction, this end time, following the reign of the 112th Pope, is right around the corner.
We're at 111 now.
112 now
Benedict
because
XVI
it's the older
is
show. We're going to
111.
get to that in a minute.
If Malachi's vision was true prophecy, there will be only one more pope to follow Benedict XVI, who turned 85 in 2012. In other words, our time may be running out. But why should we believe him? Malachi didn't just predict the number of popes before the end of the world. He also predicted who they would be with startling precision.
Yeah.
And what you find is an accuracy, I would say, that exceeds 80%, which I can tell you, that got me fascinated by these prophecies, and that he's one of the greatest prophets I've ever encountered.
What do you know? What do you
makes it
know?
amazing is he gets more accurate as he gets to the end of the list.
In fact, some of the ones more recently are quite astonishing.
You have Benedict XV, who's called by Malachi Religio Depopulata, which means religion devastated or depopulated. In his reign, the Christian faith was decimated. 25 million people dying from World War I.
It's also the time of the Bolshevik Revolution in
Whoa!
Russia. And
We don't know a
scholars
lot
say
about that, do we?
200
We don't know a lot
left
about
the Russian
that.
Orthodox Church to join the
Didn't make any
Communist Party.
Schindler's List
Religion
movies about that, did we?
After him comes the papal giant, John Paul II, who is called De Laboris Solis, which means the sun's labor through eclipse. He was born in 1920
and died on
a
one.
total eclipse.
Then when he died, he was actually buried during a solar eclipse as well. Obviously, people can't manipulate eclipses. So apparently Malachi really did see a vision of the future, and you would have to be divinely inspired, I would say, for it to match that accurately. That seems to be a little more than
And those aren't his only ones. So I think those are the ones that
Malachi's
you're touching
prophetic
on. But
precision continues with the current pope, Benedict XVI.
we'll see if we can find one a little bit more in depth here. 12 minutes. 12 minutes. Let's see. Let's see if we...
Did you know that someone who lived
see
all the
here.
way back in the 12th century is said to have predicted every single pope who would ever sit on the throne of the Vatican? Sounds a bit unreal, right? Almost like something pulled straight out of a mystery novel. But this story doesn't start on the internet or in a modern conspiracy thread. It begins in medieval Europe with an Irish archbishop named Saint Malachy. During his lifetime, he was known for rebuilding churches, restoring discipline, and even performing miracles. Nothing about him screamed future prophecy legend. And yet, centuries after his death, a strange list appeared that supposedly describes every pope from his time, all the way to the very last one. Some people believe it's an astonishing prophecy. Others say it's a clever historical hoax. But once you hear how it surfaced, it's hard not to feel a chill. So the question is, was this divine foresight? Or are we just really good at finding patterns where we want to see them? Let's get into it.
Don't believe in
All right, so before we even
coincidences.
talk about the prophecy itself, we need to talk about who Saint Malachy actually was, because this is where things get really interesting. Saint Malachy, full name
Damn it, I
Malachy
can't even take
O'Morgair,
it, Malachy.
was born around the year 1094 in Armagh, Ireland. Historically, we know quite a lot about him. He was a serious church leader, a reformer, and someone who worked deep inside the system. At that time, the Irish church was a bit disconnected from Rome in how things were practiced. Malachy's big mission was to fix that. He helped restore church discipline, reintroduced formal confession and confirmation, and brought Roman liturgy back into Irish worship. Basically, he was cleaning things up and trying to bring order where things had gotten messy. He was also closely connected to one of the most respected religious figures of the Middle Ages, Saint Bernard of Clairvaux. They were close friends. And when Malachy died in 1148, he actually died in Bernard's arms. That's how close they were. Now here's an important detail that adds a lot of credibility to Malachy as a historical figure. He was officially canonized as a saint. In fact, he was the first saint ever formally canonized by a pope, which happened in 1190 under Pope Clement III. So this isn't someone the church takes lightly. But during his lifetime, there is absolutely no mention of any prophecy about future popes. Saint Bernard himself wrote a detailed biography of Malachy. It talks about his character, his reforms, and even miracles attributed to him. Yet there is not a single line about a vision predicting the line of popes. Irish writers, who are usually very careful to record any visions or prophecies connected to their saints, are also completely silent on this. In fact, the prophecy doesn't show up at all until hundreds of years later, near the end of the 16th century. That huge gap is one of the main reasons
1590.
people question its true origin. So, what is
What
this
if he
prophecy?
didn't want it to be found?
According to the
Or
text, St.
somebody.
Malachi supposedly wrote a list of 112 short Latin phrases, often called mottos. Each one is meant to describe a future pope. The list starts with Pope Celestine II, who became pope in 1143, and continues all the way to a final figure known as Petrus Romanus. The prophecy was first published in 1595 by a Benedictine monk named Arnold Wyon in a book called Lignum Vitae, which means the tree of life. Wyon claimed the document had been sitting quietly in the Vatican archives, forgotten for centuries after Malachi supposedly wrote it down during a visit to Rome in 1139. Each motto is extremely short, and they're written in a very symbolic, almost puzzle-like way. They usually point to a pope's birthplace, family name, coat of arms, or something notable about his life. For example, the very first motto is Ex Castro Tiberis, which means from a castle on the Tiber. That's linked to Celestine II, whose birth name was Guido di Castello, and who was born near the Tiber River.
Guido Discatelli.
Supporters say details like this are just too accurate to be a coincidence. As the list goes on, each pope gets one of these mysterious little descriptions. But the last entry is the one that really gives people chills. The final pope is not given a poetic motto like the others. Instead, he's directly named Petrus Romanus. The text says he will lead the church through great suffering, and after that, the city of 7 hills. Then comes judgment. Now, this is where things start to feel a little unsettling. When people talk about the prophecy of the popes, they often point to the early matches as the strongest part of the case. Supporters argue that some of the mottos from the Middle Ages line up a little too well with real historical details to be pure coincidence. For example, there's Pope Lucius II, whose motto was Inimicus Expulsus, meaning the enemy driven out. Supporters like to point out that his birth name, Caccia Nemici, literally translates to one who drives out enemies. That kind of wordplay feels very specific.
I mean, damn.
Almost suspiciously so. Then there's Pope Benedict XII, linked to the phrase Frigidus Abbas, cold abbot. Before becoming pope, he was the abbot of Fontfroide, which means cold spring.
I mean,
Again,
come on,
people
man.
who believe in the prophecy say this is too neat to ignore.
Yeah.
Another commonly mentioned case is Pope John XXII, whose motto De Sutore Osseo, of the bony shoemaker, is often connected to the idea that he came from a shoemaker's family, and that his family name carried associations with bone. And then there's
Oh,
Adrian
there's that.
IV, the only English pope in history. His
Oh.
motto, De Rura Albo,
Really?
from a white country, is often linked to Albion, an old poetic name for England, and also to Albano, the region tied to his cardinal title. Now, critics are quick to slow things down here. They point out that these matches only feel impressive because they're being read after the fact. In other words, if you already know the Pope's life story, it's not that hard to stretch a short Latin phrase to fit. This idea is often called backward construction, writing something vague and later making it sound prophetic by matching it to known history. And here's the key detail both sides tend to agree on. The matches before 1590 do seem much tighter than the ones after. That's important because 1595 is when the prophecy was first published. Critics argue that once the text was out in the open, the descriptions suddenly become looser, more symbolic, and
Yeah.
much harder to pin down. Supporters, on the other hand, say that as history moves forward, prophecy naturally becomes more mysterious. Now let's fast forward to modern times. If we follow the commonly accepted numbering, Pope John Paul II was Pope number 110 on the list. His motto was De Labore Solis, which means of the labor of the sun.
Okay, yeah,
One
that
popular
one's
interpretation is that this refers to the fact that he was born and buried during solar eclipses.
yeah, I'd say
For
that's-
believers, that feels incredibly specific. For skeptics, it's an interesting coincidence that may be getting a little too much credit. After him came Pope Benedict XVI, number 111, linked to the phrase Gloria Olivae, glory of the olive. This one is much more vague. Some connect it to peace symbolism. Others link it to the Benedictine order, which has a branch known as the Olivetans. But even supporters admit this one requires a bit of interpretive flexibility. Then came the big question. Was Pope Francis the final pope?
No,
For years,
wasn't.
many people assumed he was, especially since the next figure in the prophecy is the ominous Petrus Romanus. But
Yeah.
now we know that wasn't the case. Pope Francis passed away in 2025 and was succeeded by Pope Leo XIV, the current pope. That development shook a lot of assumptions. Some supporters now argue that the prophecy was never meant to be read so literally.
So here's the thing, though. The same time that CERN shuts down,
That there may be additional
mean,
popes between Gloria
we can
Olivae
line a lot
and
of really
Petrus
weird
Romanus.
stuff up with now that
Others
CERN
have
shut
already
down. We
begun
got to really
searching for
pay
connections
attention to the
between
things that
Leo
happen.
XIV and the final description, pointing to things like Roman ties or symbolic links. And scholars add yet another layer to the confusion. They point out that in the original 1595 publication, the structure of the final entries is unclear. One section describes a time of final persecution, and then another speaks of Peter the Roman. Later
Yeah.
writers may have merged these into a single figure, creating the famous 112 popes count we hear today. So let's pause for
Another thing, my wife the other day, she said, I've been feeling kind of weird, like almost like I'm high. And I said, I've been feeling weird too, and it's something odd, but there's a common theory that the sun will unleash this burst of energy that will somehow modify human consciousness, and that we will then be able to do things. And it's not a fringe theory. It's pretty so, and I said that the New Age solar flash theory, the modern version, became popular in the late 20th century through New Age authors, channelers, and online communities. Basic claim is the sun emits a massive burst of energy. The energy isn't just physical, it supposedly carries a higher frequency. Human consciousness changes almost instantly. Some describe it as humanity awakening, others describe it as separation between higher and lower consciousness. That's the rapture, okay? Many people connect this to ascension, the age of Aquarius, the end of Kali Yuga, Earth's vibrational shift. And that's the thing, that's what we're going through right now. Right now, we are going through the Earth's vibrational shift. And you can see it through all of this seismic activity that I believe will culminate into one big geophysical event that will leave the Earth twisted and looking like the Edgar Cayce map. And that's what we continue to investigate here on the Justang channel. I really appreciate you guys showing up. If you haven't already, please follow, subscribe, do all that stuff, like the video, help us with the algorithm and all that. But until next time, I really appreciate you guys for watching the Justang Show, not the channel. It's my channel, the Justang Show, the name of it. But yeah, thanks for watching. Now that you don't have a damn. Everybody get down, I'm Black Spider-Man.
Have you started looking for Martin Lee yet?
No, I told you I can't start.
Yeah, I gotta get up for this one. Baby fat!
Spider-Man.
This guy.
That kid lost his father.
Now that you don't have a damn. Everybody get down, I'm Black Spider-Man. Oh. Hello. Hey there. Yeah, I finished it. Oh, I didn't end it.